There are so many interesting facts that we don't know yet about our planet, Earth. This is especially true when it comes to places which are remote, hard to reach, and where the climate is harsh and uninviting. That makes Antarctica one of the most mysterious places on Earth. 1. There are places in Antarctica which haven't received rain or snow in 2 million years. In Antarctica, around 1% of the continent is permanently ice-free. Such areas are called dry valleys or Antarctic oases. They are thought to be the world's harshest deserts, and it is estimated that these areas haven't seen rain or snow in almost 2 million years. According to one study led by Australian scientists, due to climate change, ice-free areas in Antarctica could expand up to 25% by the end of 21st century. This could drastically change the biodiversity of the continent. Number 2. There is a waterfall in Antarctica which is called Blood Falls. Don't worry, no real blood is running there. 5 million years ago, as sea levels rose, East Antarctica was flooded and a brine lake was formed there. After millions of years, glaciers formed on top of the lake. As they froze, the water below became even saltier. Today, the subglacial lake under Blood Falls is 3 times saltier than seawater and, therefore, is too salty to freeze. The water beneath Taylor Glacier, which feeds the Bloodfall, contains a lot of iron, picked up from the underlying bedrock, and when iron-rich water comes in contact with air, the iron oxidizes and takes on a red coloring, leaving blood-like stains on the ice. 3. More meteorites are found in Antarctica than anywhere else in the world. According to scientists, meteorites land everywhere with almost equal probability. However, if they fell in a humid jungle climate, moisture and oxygen would corrode them. In Antarctica, where the climate is extremely dry, the likelihood of corrosion is almost non-existent. In addition to this, naturally, the rocks are easier to spot on the white, icy surface of Antarctica. Lastly, sometimes the East Antarctic ice sheet's path to the sea is clogged by mountains or other obstructions. If the sheet stays in one spot for a long time, strong winds and sunlight can evaporate the top layers and reveal much older ice and large meteorite concentrations within it. This way, more than 20,000 samples of rock from unknown sources were collected since 1976. 4.70% of world's fresh water is in Antarctica. If all of the Antarctic ice melted, sea levels in the world would rise about 200 feet 61 meters. 5. The average ice sheet thickness in Antarctica is 1 mile and is almost completely covered in a thick layer of ice, except for dry valleys, which make up around 1% of the area. The thickness of the ice sheet varies depending on the location, with the East Antarctic sheet being much thicker than the one in the west. On average, the ice is more than 1 mile (1.6 kilometers) thick, but in some sections it can get as thick as almost 3 miles (4.8 kilometers). 6. Antarctica has no official time zone. As Antarctica is mostly uninhabited, the continent is not officially divided into time zones. However, a number of existing research stations use either the time zone of the country that operates or supplies them, or use the local time of countries located nearby. 7. The largest recorded iceberg was bigger than the whole island of Jamaica. The largest recorded was Iceberg B-15, which measured around 183 miles (295 kilometers) long and 23 miles (37 kilometers) wide, with a surface area of 4,200 square miles. In 2000, the Iceberg B-15 broke up into smaller icebergs and later drifted away into the sea. 8. Emilio Marcos Palma was the first person to be born in history by being the first person to be born on Antarctica. His father was the head of the Argentine Army detachment at the Esperanza research base. Since then, 10 more people have been born on the continent, but Palma's birthplace still remains the southernmost and has featured in the Guinness Book of Records. 9. The world's oldest sperm was found in Antarctica. The scientists from Sweden found a 50-million-year-old fossilized clytolate worm cocoon in Antarctica, which contained the world's oldest sperm. The sperm of this worm is very short-lived and extremely hard to find, however, because it became trapped in the jelly-like cocoon before it hardened, it was preserved for millions of years. 10. There are 2 civilian towns in Antarctica. 11. Sled dogs have been banned from Antarctica in 1994. Back in 1911, sled dogs hauled supplies for Norwegian explorers led by Roald Amundsen. It was the first expedition to reach the South Pole. Afterwards, sled dogs were kept and used in Antarctica for years. However, they were banned from the continent in 1993 due to fear that they might transmit canine distemper to the Antarctic seals or would escape and disturb the local wildlife. 12. More than 300 large lakes exist underneath the ice sheet as of today. They do not freeze because of geothermal heat and pressure, or simply put, the warmth of Earth's core. The lakes are a part of vast hydrological network under the thick ice sheet. Scientists believe that these isolated lakes might be home to microorganisms that are yet to be discovered by the modern science. 13. The lowest surface temperature on Earth ever recorded is -144 degrees Fahrenheit, -98 degrees Celsius. Back in 2013, it was thought that the coldest surface temperature on Earth, recorded in Antarctica, was -135 degrees Fahrenheit, -93 degrees Celsius. However, this year the study has been revised and scientists announced that on the coldest site on Earth, temperatures can drop even lower, to -144 degrees Fahrenheit, -98 degrees Celsius. They were observed during polar night, in wintertime. This record of -144 degrees Fahrenheit, -98 degrees Celsius, is about as cold as it is possible to get at Earth's surface, according to the scientists. The conditions under which such low temperature can occur are dry air and a clear sky, persisting for several days. If they persisted longer, the temperature could drop even lower, but researchers don't think that it is likely to happen. 14. Mount Erebus is one of the few consistently active volcanoes on Earth. It contains a 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit, about 927 degrees Celsius, lava lake that is thought to be miles deep. Mount Erebus is always alive and bubbling, releasing gas and spitting out chunks of molten rock and feldspar crystals, rich in potassium, sodium and aluminum silicate. 15. Antarctica, the Arctic and some other remote islands are the only places in the world not colonized by ants. 16. Antarctica was once a tropical continent and it can become one again due to CO2 emissions. Scientists say that it is only in the quite recent geological past it got so cold there. Around 52 million years ago, the concentration of carbon dioxide (CO2) or the greenhouse gas was more than twice as high compared to today and the climate was much hotter. However, according to scientists, if the current CO2 emissions continue to rise due to burning of fossil fuels, the amount of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere that existed millions of years ago is likely to be achieved within a few hundred years. 17. Antarctica is 1.5 the size of U.S. Surface area of the Antarctica is around 5,400,000 square miles, 14 million square kilometers. In the winter, Antarctica doubles in size because of the ice building up around the coast of it. The continent is twice the size of Australia, 1.5 times the size of the United States and 50 times the size of United Kingdom. 18. Antarctica is the only continent without reptiles and snakes. However, there is an abundance of other forms of wildlife, such as whales, seals, penguins and other birds. Penguins are the most common birds in the Antarctic. They live in colonies and survive in the harshest conditions. Out of the 17 existing different species of penguins, 2 of them are permanent residents on Antarctica, the emperor and Adelie penguins. King penguins only breed on the warmer northern islands. 19. Due to climate change, Antarctica has lost 3 trillion tons of ice. Sadly, the ice loss process has accelerated dramatically over the last 5 years. While analyzing data from multiple satellite surveys from 1992 to 2017, a group of 84 international researchers has found that Antarctica is currently losing ice about 3 times faster than it did before 2012. Now it is predicted that more than 241 billion tons of ice are lost each year. 20. Earth's gravitational pull is shifting because of climate change. Today the effects of climate change are so grave that gravity itself is changing. According to the European Space Agency (ESA), in only 3 years, Antarctica has lost so much ice that it caused a shift in the Earth's gravitational pull. 21. Antarctica has 1 ATM. Antarctica, while it is near New Zealand territory, the ATM only dispenses US dollars. 22. Winds can reach the speed of 200 miles per hour. Antarctica is one of the windiest places on Earth and is home to unusual katabatic and downslope winds. The strong winds are influenced by cold temperatures and the shape of the continent. The highest recorded wind speed was at a French base back in 1972. It was blowing at 200 miles per hour, 320 kilometers per hour. And even though it doesn't snow there that often, contrary to what most of us would think, due to strong winds, the snow is picked up from the ground and moved around, which might look like it's snowing. 23. The highest temperature ever recorded on Antarctica was 63.5 degrees Fahrenheit, 17.5 degrees Celsius. The discovery was made in 2015 at the Argentine research base Esperanza, near the northern tip of the Antarctic Peninsula. An even higher temperature of 67.6 degrees Fahrenheit, 19.8 degrees Celsius, was recorded on Cygni Island, located on the South Orkney Islands of Antarctica, back in 1982. 24. Antarctica is the coldest, windiest and driest continent. Antarctica, despite all its ice, Antarctica is technically a desert, because of the low precipitation levels. To compare, the Sahara Desert receives twice as much rain each year. The coasts of Antarctica receive more falling moisture, but unlike in other deserts, it doesn't soak into the ground. 25. There are no polar bears in Antarctica. Only in the Arctic there are polar bear. Naturally, polar bears now live in countries that surround the Arctic Circle: US, Alaska, Norway, Russia, Canada and Greenland. 26. There are 7 Christian churches in Antarctica. Churches. Even in one of the harshest climates in the world, people still find time to build places of worship, which are all Christian.